library. I'm Miranda, the youth librarian, and I'm going to be bringing you a really cool activity today. So we are going to be making, see if I can remember all the descriptors, edible pumpkin pie Play-Doh. So I've never used this recipe specifically before, so it's going to be a little bit of an experiment, but that's okay. That's what recipes are all about. So here's what you need for this one. First, you're going to need a recipe, which we will link to in the video description, just in case my information or directions aren't clear, because I'm going to be changing the recipe a little bit to not make as much, basically. Then you'll need something to, well, I'm going to work on this right here while I'm kneading my dough. But you don't have to have that. You can work straight on the table if you want to. This is just a little bit neater for me. Then you're going to need some cornstarch. You're going to need some pumpkin pie spice. You're going to need pumpkin, pure pumpkin, not the pumpkin pie filler. A bowl, spoon, fork, and then I'm only doing half cups of things, even though the recipe calls for 2 cups of things. So I've got 2 half cups and I've got a teaspoon. Okay, so we're going to set that off to the side because we're not going to use it right away. And then I'm going to follow my recipe, which tells me to mix the pumpkin. Now, the recipe is also cinnamon instead of pumpkin pie spice, but for the purposes of our recipe, it's essentially the same thing. So we're going to mix our pumpkin and our pumpkin pie spice in a medium to large bowl. Mine doesn't have to be large because, again, I'm not making as much as this recipe calls for. So let's see. Half a cup of pumpkin. I think it's okay if it's a little overfull. And we're going to dump that into our bowl. I'll try to get it a little closer so that y'all can see a little better what's going on in there. In fact, it might be better if I stand up. Okay. And then pumpkin pie spice. Let's see if I can get that plastic off. Oh yeah, that came off real nice. Okay. And I'm going to give a heaping teaspoon because I really want mine to smell like pumpkin pie. Okay. I'm going to mix that up. Oh, and you can really smell it. Oh, so good. This is one of those times when I bet y'all are wishing that there was such a thing as smell-o-vision, because wow. Cinnamon and the nutmeg. It smells so good. All right. Okay, so that looks like it's mixed up pretty well. Then it says that I need to gradually add the cornstarch until the mixture is doughy but not sticky. Okay, cornstarch. Let's go ahead. Cornstarch is so messy. It's very, very powdery. Okay, so we're just going to add a little. And then, oh, see what I mean? Messy. Look at the mess I'm making. Okay, let's get some more in there. I should probably yeah. Okay, it's definitely starting to thicken up a little bit. Okay. And it's really starting to smell like pumpkin pie. Like, if you're a pumpkin pie fan, you're like, I'll just eat this right now. Forget about the dough. Now, I will say that if you decide not to use this recipe, but you think it would be really fun to make pumpkin pie dough of some kind, I do want to mention something that I learned while I was doing research for this recipe. If you see edible recipes that call for regular flour, make sure that you follow the instructions for cooking it on the stove and or using boiling water. Because flour, which is designed for cooking, does not have the same like FDA rules in appliance because they're expecting you to cook it in the oven. So sometimes flour can carry bacteria that you don't want to eat. And so you don't want an edible Play-Doh that might have that bacteria in it. So you definitely want to be cooking your flour first to get rid of and kill that bacteria. So just as an FYI, if you decide to go that route. Now you can see this is still more battery than it is Play-Doh-y. But the best part about this recipe is that it doesn't have that many ingredients. So if it's too battery, then we just add more of our dry ingredient. And I do think that I used more pumpkin than was absolutely necessary when I was doing the cup. Now that looks more like Play-Doh. Okay. And don't worry, I will taste test for us. All right, that's looking pretty good. So let's get it out onto our tray. Okay, technically it's a cutting board. All right. Okay, so now that I'm feeling of it, it still feels pretty moist. And I think ideally you would probably want to add a little bit more cornstarch. So let's go ahead, maybe too much. Let's just kind of fold that in. How much cornstarch you may or may not need is also kind of relevant depending on the atmosphere that you're in, like how high up or how sorry, lost my train of thought. But it does depend on how much humidity is in the air, like all that kind of stuff. So weather can play a role. And this is still really wet. So let's do more cornstarch. So it's starting to look like you may want to double your cornstarch. So if you're doing, like I did, if you're doing a half a cup of pumpkin, then you probably want a whole cup of cornstarch. Because this was definitely not ready to come out of the bowl yet. It looked like it was ready. Let's see if we can pick up more of this cornstarch. Okay, you can hear Miss Rosie wandering around. She can smell it. And she gets pumpkin a lot, so she's like, pumpkin? Not pumpkin pie, of course. I don't think you'd want to give your dog pumpkin pie. Okay. And of course, as I work with it, it's also starting to dry out a little bit because the pumpkin was very moist. And so that's helping. But I think, let's do a little bit more. We had a little mini cornstarch eruption. Okay. But yes, once you get it to a consistency that you're happy with, you can have your kids play with it. It's a lot of fun as far as sensory stuff goes. You could add in other things for texture, like you could get some dried pumpkin seeds or something like that. get out the cookie cutters and let them just have at it. And of course, it is edible. It doesn't have a lot of sweetener in it. You saw what all went into it, so it's only what's in the pumpkin pie spice. And I don't know how much sweetener is in pumpkin pie spice. So I am going to try some. Not very much. Yeah, I'm thinking it needs a lot more cornstarch than what was in what this recipe said. Because it had half and half, and this just needs some time to dry out. So I guess you could do that if you wanted to, don't want to put in as much cornstarch. If you want to conserve your cornstarch, you could leave this somewhere, let it dry out a little bit first on its own before letting your kids play with it. You could also try putting it in the fridge for a little bit and letting it get cold. And that would work for a little while, but of course, once it starts to heat up and warm up again, it's going to come back to this kind of texture. So you need to be aware of that. All right, so I don't think I'm going to add any more cornstarch, but I am going to do a taste test. So y'all ready for this? I'm not going to eat a bunch. Okay. Very small bite. Oh, that's way too much cornstarch. So, well, it is perfectly possible for your kids to eat this and not be hurt by it. You do not have to worry about, I don't think, wow. You do not have to worry about them just like putting the whole thing in their mouths and going to town because, now I'm getting the cinnamon. So while it is not harmful to ingest, they are not going to want to ingest this, I promise you. Now, if for some reason you wanted a Play-Doh that they could also ingest, there are some really cool recipes for edible Play-Doh that are made with marshmallows. I saw a recipe that was made with only powdered sugar and frosting. Like, doesn't that sound amazing? And also very unhealthy. But there are lots of different options out there. However, I will link to this specific recipe in our video so that you can go take a look at it for yourself. Maybe you'll see something in the recipe that I didn't about... it does say keep refrigerated until ready for play. So maybe that's the idea, is that it's refrigerated for a bit first. But it is still very damp. I'd want my Play-Doh a little bit drier. But yeah, the more cornstarch you put in there, the more it's going to be. Which again, depending on your reasons or what you're hoping to accomplish from this activity, might be perfectly okay. So there you have it. There is our recipe for today. I really wish we had smell-o-vision because this is the most amazing smelling Play-Doh I have ever smelled in my life. But yeah, so there you have it. That's our activity for the day. Let's see, what else do I need to remind you about? I actually think this video shows on Fridays now. So basically, don't forget to pick up your craft kit if you haven't gotten one this week. We'll be giving those out until 8 p.m. tonight. Let's see. I hope you enjoyed the other videos from this week. If y'all haven't had a chance to check them out, please do so. They should be on our YouTube channel as well. And let's see. Oh, next week, Thanksgiving week, the library is closed on Thursday and Friday. So we're only doing one video next week. So just be aware of that and look for it on our Facebook page and we'll post it. I think it'll also be on our Instagram, maybe. I'm not sure which one she posts on Instagram anymore. Okay. I think that is everything. I'm sure I forgot something. Thank you very much for tuning in and I hope y'all have a good day.